Well, we're back at Global Blockchain Summit. It's Hans Holgren. I'm speaking now with Rick Cranston. Great to have you here. It just came out of your session moments ago on the self-sovereign identity.
You did.
And some of the excellent, exciting things you're doing with the organization. So if you can give us some just background and overview of what's happening, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the future of blockchain as well.
Yeah, I mentioned to the group that CU Ledger started as one of the world's largest blockchain consortiums, and now we've evolved to an LLC. Our focus is really on three pillars, starting with self-sovereign identity, but moving to smart contracts. Since I represent financial institutions from across the world, we're all about lending, right? So smart contracts, there's a really solid application there. And the third pillar is payments, specifically cross-border payments. That initiative around identity, self-sovereign identity, is called MyCUID. And as I mentioned to the group, it is absolutely foundational. Every interaction that a member has with a financial institution and a financial institution has with a member first happens because they know who you are. So we find that absolutely the foundation for moving forward in our industry going forward today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with blockchain, we hear a lot about one of the huge benefits is helping us manage the self-sovereign identity issue. And the MyCUID, so I think it's all just one word, right?
Right.
Yep. Fantastic. Can you maybe discuss for those people that aren't as aware of the problem that we are having today that this solves? Because I think that's kind of fascinating what you were showing. So maybe, I don't know, without the visuals, if you can do that.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Great question, Hans. The current number, when you think about fraud losses worldwide on an annual basis, is $3.7 trillion. Call centers in my industry, but also the banking industry, the insurance industry, the healthcare industry, call centers are under assault, literally. And fraudsters are getting very good at phishing. So no longer does multi-factor authentication work as efficiently as it has in the past. So they're finding ways to penetrate the system, even when a credit union call center or teller line does everything correctly. So how do we fight that? Well, blockchain is the answer. So DLT technology, self-sovereign identity, making sure that our members have an identity so that we have assurance that I'm talking to you and I know who you are, and vice versa. You know who I am is critical going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we had a pizza shop down in Stockholm, and we trusted that facility, and we knew the people. I think you talked about that possibility.
Yeah.
You have to have the people you know and trust, but when you get into this huge digital world, how do you maintain that level of trust, and how do you know that your identity is being managed properly? So I think it's critical.
That's you're spot on. That's exactly right. I'll tell you one really quick story. I had a call center from my local credit union call me. A gentleman introduced himself as Darren. Darren, my new friend from the call center at the credit union, said, "Thank you, Mr. Cranston. We really appreciate your business. Do you mind if we verify some account information?" So little bells are going off. I said, "Well, Darren, you don't know what I do you?" And he said, "Well, no, I'm just trying to validate who you are." And I said, "Well, can you prove who you are?" And he said, "Well, that's what I'm trying to do with you." So that sort of reflects the brokenness of the system.
Yeah.
I need to know who I'm talking to, and you need to know who you're talking to before anything can happen.
That's a really good point. We should always ask that person on the other phone, well, what's the last 4 digits of your social?
Right.
And that kind of thing.
That's right.
See if that works.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So if you look ahead now, like in a 1 to 2 year window, and knowing what you know about what's happening with some of the initiatives for identity, where do you see us going? Are we heading in the right direction? Are we going to get there?
I truly believe it. The credit union industry is a cooperative movement, first of all. Very different than a for-profit industry. We're certainly profit-minded, but we're not profit-motivated, and there's a critical differentiation there. So I truly believe credit union industry is going to lead out when it comes to self-sovereign identity, just because of the cooperative nature of of what we're trying to do.
Right.
So I don't think there's any doubt that it'll happen. I showed a trend line that included some pretty significant players, including IBM most recently on April 4th.
Very exciting.
Those kinds of organizations joining the self-sovereign movement, I think is going to help us get there. So I always say we're going to meet in the middle. Credit union industry is going to meet the rest of the world in the middle somewhere, and we'll move forward. I think it has to get fixed. The costs are so astronomical, and now the technology actually lives. We can actually fix these problems. So I think we're well on the way to doing that.
So the idea of having one, answer to everything here is probably somewhat off the table, right? But there's more an idea of having a cooperation where you can join together for standards, which will make it possible to exchange through those standards, right? Information.
Absolutely. I think standards are going to be critical. But in addition to that, one thing that I think is an important thing to note is that many of the organizations that are talking today could actually run their applications on our network. Starting with identity first, right? If you think about that whole notion of identity as it relates to other solutions, identity happens first, and then you transition the appropriate solutions on top of that.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. First step. Who are you?
Yep.
Now let's get into what we're doing together, right?
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So off topic now, a different question. Here at the summit, you've had some chance, I think. I know it's been a busy schedule for you, but some chance to interface and meet some of the other folks here. Is there anyone you met or that you saw that was interesting here?
I do have an affinity for what IBM is doing. I think IBM is doing some significant things. There will be integration between AI and Watson, I predict, and what we're doing in CU Ledger. So Shauna Hoffman's presentation really hit a high point in my head. I think that there's going to be tremendous opportunities there to work with those kinds of organizations. So I think she did a great job. Yeah,
that was really good to point out. In Shauna's interview, we also were talking about that. There's kind of the trifacto here now with the blockchain and the AI, and then the quantum computing to support the capability to make that happen. And then if we add a self-sovereign identity, it's a pretty good world, huh?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that CU Ledger and IBM will actually have a meeting fairly soon. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, best of luck with that for sure. So,
Thank you.
And hopefully we can see you again in the fall. We'll have another blockchain summit here in Colorado, so it'd be great to have you with us again for sure.
Love to. I'll be here.
All right. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks.